Hey everybody. So what is a husband obligated to provide for his wife? What does a man owe a woman? What does he exactly have to provide for her? So in this week's Torah portion, Parshat Mishpatim, which has a lot of mitzvahs, a lot of commandments in this week's Parsha, but it does have a short phrase which gives us the definition of what a man is obligated to provide for his wife. Now, interestingly enough, the Torah does not talk about what the woman is obligated to provide for her husband. Nope. The main obligation on his shoulders to make sure he provides for his wife. And what does it say? It tells us, short phrase, it says, She'erak sutav v'onata lo yigra. These three things, She'erak sutav v'onata, he cannot withhold. So what are those three things? There's actually differences of opinion of how exactly to translate those words, because some of them are a little bit on the obscure side, but we're going to go with Rashi. We're going to go with the main translation here. She'era, that's food. Of course, you got to provide food. I mean, you can't live without food. Ksut is a covering. And so that's referring to clothing. Commentaries extended beyond that. A house, furnishings, things that you need to live with. Okay? And onata is sexual relations, intimacy. So let's talk about the first two. We'll get to the third, don't worry. We'll get to the third. First two, food and clothing and a home. Let's face it, when we talk about providing for those things, there's a very, very huge, large gap in terms of providing. Is it necessities or is it luxuries? Like, what's the definition of how much you need to provide? So Jewish tradition talks about this in the Sefer HaChinuch, which is a book that goes through all the 613 commandments. He cites a line from the Talmud, and he points out, Sha'isha ola imabal ve'eno yoredet. A woman goes up with her husband, she doesn't go down. Meaning, if she comes from a place of modest means, and she marries a guy who's got a little bit of money, and he comes from a family, let's say, with money, he can't say to her, you aren't used to these luxurious things. I don't have to provide those for you. No. Once she comes into the marriage and she sees that, and that's part of her new worldview, that's what she gets used to. That's what has to be provided for her. She goes up with him. She doesn't go down in terms of what she is used to, in terms of the physical things, the food, the luxuries, the necessities. And so the idea here is a guy's got to be very, very careful. You don't go out and necessarily buy for your wife an Audi SUV if you could barely make the payments. Because once she gets used to that, that's it. You're stuck. You got to provide that. If you're not on that level financially, then don't do it. Get the Honda minivan. It's much more, if that's what you can afford. And then if you do better, okay, then you'll upgrade. But you can only go up. You can't go down. I know a guy, good friend of mine, he did a really, really, really dumb thing very early on in his marriage. And what he did was, for one of the first Pesachs they spent together as a couple, they went to a hotel Pesach program. And if you haven't heard about one of these things, it's just like endless food, and they just serve on you everything. You don't got to do anything, no cleaning. And so he did that early in his marriage. Well, guess what? Year 2 comes along, or year 3 comes along. Let's do Pesach at home? That's not going to fly. She's not going to go, oh, sure, I now want to go clean the kitchen and do all the work and do all the cooking for Pesach. You can't expect her to do that. And so he was stuck for many, 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 many years having to go to Pesach programs. And he tried to get out of it in every which way. Thank God, COVID came along. And when COVID came along and all these hotels shut down, they went back home. Now we finally got out of, because again, she goes up, she goes up, doesn't go down. Once you provide a certain level of provisions, those luxuries become necessities. You're not allowed to go down. The sex thing. So what's that say? You see, they're not just talking about intercourse. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about intimacy. You got to make time What happens often in marriages is people get so caught up and busy, and they have kids and jobs and this, that, and the other, and they forget, and their marriage goes on the back burner, and their intimacy and their sex life goes on the back burner. This is an obligation. The man can't say, I'm too busy. I got so much on my plate. I'm too tired. This, that. No, no, no. You got to carve out time and energy and space and place to make sure you have an intimate life. Because when we talk about sex, we're not just talking about sexual intercourse. There's more than that. And it's not just foreplay. There's more than that. Do the dishes when she doesn't ask you to put away the dishes. All those things to win her over. I always say, don't stop courting your wife. You got to make sure you make that a priority. And that's what the Torah is saying, is that your intimate life has to be a priority. It's just as important as providing food. It's just as important as providing shelter, a home, and all those things. This is a crucial aspect. So that's what the Torah is telling us are the obligations on the guy again. Yes, guys, you got the bigger work over here. The guy has the obligation to make sure he provides the necessary things commensurate with what she's used to, and certainly not to neglect their intimate life. Have a good Shabbos.